Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. As evacuations continue in Afghanistan, rallies in support of the Afghan people were being held, including here in Lethbridge. Our Foreign Affairs expert Lisa Daftari has an update as to how the evacuations are going in Afghanistan. And a new warning from the Better Business Bureau about a new scam which has hit Southern Alberta. We have the details.
Your nation. Your province. Your Southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. A group of around 50 people gathered at Lethbridge City Hall on Monday night to rally in solidarity with people who are fleeing Afghanistan. As Carson Marsouk reports, attendees were worried for their family members and wanted to see more support for the Afghan refugees.
With the rapidly changing situation in Afghanistan, community members here in Lethbridge gathered outside City Hall on Monday to stand in solidarity and raise awareness of what is happening with the Taliban control. Attendees say they are condemning what the Taliban is doing.
Our religion is a religion of peace and love and unity. What they portray is nothing like that. Our religion has the highest level of respect for women. What they portray is nothing like that.
Organizer of Monday's rally, Hadra Bali, says they are wanting to make a change but have received little help.
We don't know how to help. When they're asking us to help, we don't have any resources. Right now, nobody's able to get out of there. So how are we supposed to help when they're asking us to help them? That's like the main thing that we don't know what to do about.
One woman who spoke with Bridge City News asked to remain anonymous to protect the safety of her family. She says she is deeply worried for her family members back in Afghanistan.
When I talk to my family and they tell me that they went out, I still get chills from that. I don't want them to go out. I don't want them to do anything because I know the terror. I know how it feels to be there. Like, imagine people walking with guns all over the streets, all over the city.
Their group has brought forward demands they hope to see in the near future, including expanding the Afghan resettlement program and providing immediate humanitarian assistance. With the federal election less than a month away, the group wants to see the crisis on the agenda for all parties.
We just want everyone to have a program and an agenda for our problems and have a solution, a realistic solution that will prevent the war and bring peace to our country finally, something that we've been hoping to see.
Bali says the message is clear.
I just want people to, understand that this is still happening in 2021. And how could we allow for this to happen as human beings?
For Bridge City News, I'm Carson Marsouk.
Liberal leader Justin Trudeau emerged from the emergency G7 virtual meeting on Afghanistan, saying that Canada is ready to stay beyond the August 31st evacuation deadline. But he and other leaders failed to persuade U.S. President Joe Biden to delay the American military withdrawal. Trudeau says they also emphasized how important it was to let the Taliban know that it should be letting people have access to the airport in the next week, even after the deadline passes. Meanwhile, the U.S. State Department says it is boosting vetting and evacuation efforts as operations at the Kabul airport in Afghanistan continue.
As you heard this morning, from 3 a.m. on August 22nd to 3 a.m. on August 23rd, 28 U.S. military flights evacuated approximately 10,400 people from Kabul. In addition, 61 coalition aircraft evacuated approximately 5,900 people from Kabul. Since August 14th, the U.S. has evacuated and facilitated the evacuation of approximately 37,000 people. Since the end of last month, the end of July, we have relocated approximately 42,000 people. The temporary transit locations we have established at U.S. or joint bases in Germany, Italy, and Spain have capacity to process at least 15,000 people on a rolling basis, significantly expanding our ability to facilitate the relocation of U.S. citizens and at-risk Afghans from Afghanistan.
The Taliban says things will be a lot different this time with the group in power. They say they're not the same terrorist group which ruled Afghanistan in the 90s. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari is not so sure.
Taliban has attempted to have a new face, to be more moderate, to use their PR machine, social media accounts and such, to say we're different. We're going to give women rights. We're going to, be different. This is not the same Taliban of the 90s, but they're already showing us their true colors. Women have been told not to go to work in certain sectors, and women have been told not to go to university in other provinces rather. So we know that they're going to play by their true colors, and this is going to be a mess.
Lisa will also discuss how the Taliban is going door to door in Afghanistan, looking for Christians to kill and others who oppose them. That informative interview is coming up after Business News. There's a Christian organization which began in Burkina Faso that helps some of the world's most vulnerable. The founder, Dr. Daniel Zappoula, lives here in Lethbridge. We recently asked Dr. Zappoula how it all began for Bridges of Hope.
The reason I got involved in starting Bridges of Hope some over 20 years ago is because there was no water in one community. And as we sought to provide water for the community, we realized, wow, the community doesn't have a water problem. They actually have water problem, but they do have health problem. The death rate was so high. And then in the process, we realized it's full of orphans and people who are thrown out and kids that are abandoned. And then we realized, oh my Lord. So we have a health problem, we have a hunger problem, and then education problem. So we started from the well, we built an orphanage, and from an orphanage, a school, and the school, a college, and the college, a university.
Catch the full interview with Dr. Daniel Zappoula and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up later in our newscast. Kids here in Lethbridge were at Henderson Lake today enjoying the great outdoors on the roving gyms. As Micah Quinn explains now, the Lethbridge Sport Council has been bringing out the equipment for the past few years, giving locals the chance to become a little more active.
Francisca Badia has been taking her son Elias to the roving gyms since he was 8 months old. Now he's almost 2, and mother and son are still coming out to enjoy the outdoor fun.
Moms can come and bring the children to play, but also sometimes you feel so lonely in the house, and especially if you're not from here like me, that I came from another country and I didn't know anyone. I didn't have friends, and so to come here and have a chat or with other adults was also very nice.
Sean Day Finley is the program and event coordinator for the Lethbridge Sport Council, and he says roving gyms are a loose parts program for newborns to 5-year-olds and their parents or caregivers.
The equipment is all designed around fundamental movement skills, so practicing different skills that are the precursors for sport. It came about through an EDI or a tool that was put out, a survey around Lethbridge, and we found that kids in Lethbridge were less physically literate than other places in Alberta. So immediately the city enacted a program, and this is the program that came about. It's free, offered to anybody who's willing to work on fundamental movement skills.
The roving gyms will be at Henderson Lake on Tuesday and Nicholas Sharon Arena on Thursday from 10 to 11 a.m. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
You may have noticed a heavy police presence in the 800 block of 7th Avenue South on Monday evening. The matter involved the execution of a search warrant by Lethbridge Police and the recovery of what's believed to be stolen property. Several people were removed from the home in handcuffs while the search was conducted. According to neighbors, the house is known as a suspected drug home and bike chop shop. Lethbridge Police say the investigation is ongoing and no charges have been laid just yet. The president of the Better Business Bureau in Southern Alberta and East Kootenay, BC, has a warning. Mary O'Sullivan Anderson says people need to beware of scammers selling shipping containers. Anderson says the crooks are making false offers of containers for sale through websites and online ads. She says it's a scam and they'll pressure you for a deposit to secure the purchase of the container. Once they have the deposit, she says, you'll never hear from them ever again. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau was feeling a little defensive on the campaign trail recently. Twitter flagged a recent tweet from his deputy prime minister as manipulated media. A video in the tweet stitches together clips of Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole that the Liberals say illustrates his support for private health care. The other leaders called it misinformation, but Trudeau insists that the video shows O'Toole supports for-profit health care.
We know that we need to invest more money in healthcare, and we need to work with the provinces to improve data sharing and outcomes for Canadians across the country. Those are the conversations we're going to have, and this announcement today doubles down on the Liberal Party's commitment to public universal healthcare, at the same time as we've seen Aaron O'Toole double down on his belief in a two-tiered private for-profit system.
Let me be perfectly clear. I 100% support our public and universal healthcare system. In fact, it's been the backbone we've relied on through the pandemic and the frontline workers in it. That's why in our plan, in Canada's recovery plan, we're giving an additional $60 billion to secure that public healthcare system.
It's really troubling. Just to highlight the question, we've got the Liberal Party putting out misinformation, spreading it online, to the point that Twitter had to flag it. We have long called for an end to misinformation, and the government needs to be very vigilant with clear laws around how that information should not be allowed to be spread, how it should be removed. We've also tied that into online hate speech. A lot of the radicalization of people and online hate is based on information that's wrong, that's false, that's spread, and that creates in people this, that increases the sentiment of hate.
The party executive for Manitoba's Conservatives has set the date to pick their new leader, who will also become the province's new premier. The day will be October the 30th. Now, they also set down rules including an entry fee of $25,000. Premier Brian Pallister announced earlier this month that he would not seek re-election and said that he's prepared to step aside within a few short weeks. Manitoba will once again make masks mandatory. Government officials say it will apply to all indoor settings, and government employees working with those most vulnerable will have to be fully vaccinated or face regular testing.
This is why today we're announcing that all frontline provincial employees who work with vulnerable populations must be fully immunized by October the 31st or undergo frequent COVID-19 testing. This includes healthcare providers, educational and early learning and childcare providers, public servants and agencies who work in high-risk settings, and Manitoba justice officials who work with vulnerable people and in correctional facilities. As a government, it is our expectation to lead by example. We will require all government staff in the Manitoba Legislative Assembly to follow these policies. That will include MLAs. All designated public sector workers will be required to be fully immunized and provide proof of vaccination or undergo frequent COVID-19 testing in order to ensure the safety of their workplace and the people they serve.
Health officials in BC say that a card showing proof of COVID-19 vaccination will be required in order to access a wide range of activities. The initiative starts on September the 13th. Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry says the temporary measure will help reduce transmission of the virus and will help to stop the spread of the Delta variant.
So the settings that we're talking about include indoor ticketed sporting events, indoor concerts, theater, dance, and symphony events, indoor and patio dining in restaurants, nightclubs and casinos, fitness centers, gyms, and businesses offering indoor high-intensity exercise, organized indoor events like weddings or parties, birthdays, conferences, and workshops, and indoor organized events, discretionary organized indoor recreational classes and activities, so things like seniors classes, choirs, and other indoor groups.
The Saskatchewan Health Authority says most people recently infected with COVID-19 at long-term care homes in Regina have not displayed any symptoms. The Health Authority says coronavirus outbreaks are either confirmed or suspected at 7 of Regina's long-term care homes. It did not say how many cases were in the affected Regina care homes. Due to new cases, family members can now only visit the facilities during end-of-life care. Government officials in Hawaii are warning people not to travel to the islands right now. They say COVID-19 has pushed hospitals to capacity, and Honolulu officials are restricting large events and restaurant capacity.
We are seeing more COVID patients in our hospitals, and the ICUs are filling up. It is a risky time to be traveling right now. I did ask everyone, residents and visitors alike, to reduce travel to Hawaii to essential business activities only. We do know that It is not a good time to travel to the islands. Restaurant capacity has been restricted. There is limited access to rent-a-cars. And we know that the visitors who choose to come to the islands will not have the typical kind of holiday that they expect to get when they visit Hawaii.
A Christian couple from England just completed 15 years of relief work with the world's largest humanitarian airline, Mission Aviation Fellowship. Greg and Jill Vine take a look back on what it is that inspired them as they worked during that time in Uganda and Chad. We have more now in this report.
Jill and Greg Vine, a couple working in Uganda with Mission Aviation Fellowship, a humanitarian air service which flies to more destinations than any other airline, recently celebrated 15 years of service with the ministry. Greg is a MAF pilot and Jill is their communications officer based in Kampala. Their highlight has been seeing the impact of the many ministry teams they've helped to transport to some of the hardest to reach places.
It's always really exciting to see what people are doing, to see how it's impacting people on the ground. There are a good portion of the people that we fly who are very expressive about how grateful they are to be able to fly, to be safer, to be quicker, to be more effective. It's extremely rewarding for me.
I've also seen the transformation that happens through the people we fly. So that's been a very positive aspect of watching what MAF partakes in. We don't actually do the work on the ground, but we fly the people that do the incredible work. And they are incredible saints that we fly every single day. So we get to meet the most amazing humans, really, that fly with us.
And every 4 minutes a MAF plane takes off or lands in 26 developing countries, flying help, hope and healing to some of the remotest places on Earth. Peter Wooding for the Global News Alliance.
Great to see the work they're doing with Mission Aviation Fellowship. Well, it felt a lot like autumn today with the cooler temperatures here in southwestern Alberta. The days of 30-plus temps appear to be behind us, but the mercury will be climbing somewhat. Complete weather details are on deck. We had lots of cloud cover again today and a little bit cooler here in southwestern Alberta. Even chillier tonight under a partly cloudy sky with a low near +2. Wednesday, mainly sunny with a high expected near 20. Thursday, a mixture of sun and cloud and a high of 24. Friday, mainly cloudy with a high of 19 degrees. Saturday, overcast with a high of 21. Even warmer on Sunday under a mainly cloudy sky with a high of 25. Monday, pretty much the same picture with a high again near 25 degrees. Looking at the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 25 and an average low of 9. The highest temperature in the state was recorded in 1969 at 37 degrees, and the record low was 0 in 1992. Sunrise was at 6:35, sunset at 8:32. Looking at the national forecast for tomorrow now, it should be mainly sunny and 22 in Victoria, BC, a mixture of sun and cloud and 24 for Vancouver. Mainly sunny and 16 degrees for Calgary on Wednesday. Sunshine and 22 is on tap for Edmonton. Lots of sunshine and 19 degrees for Regina, Saskatchewan. Just a few clouds and 20 for Saskatoon. Expect showers and 18 degrees in Winnipeg on Wednesday. A good chance of rain and 32 for Toronto. It should be quite humid once again. Chance of thunder showers and 31 for Ottawa. Mainly sunny and 33 degrees for Montreal. In Atlantic Canada, it should be mainly sunny and 30 degrees in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Foggy and 29 in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Mainly sunny and 27 in Charlottetown, PEI. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect rain and a high of 24 degrees. Stats Canada says Canadians with the lowest credit ratings repaid the most credit card debt during the first year of the pandemic. The agency says overall non-mortgage debt fell by a record $20.6 billion from the start of the pandemic to January of this year. That includes a $16.6 billion drop in credit card debt as household incomes hit record levels. Mortgage debt, however, rose by a record $99.6 billion over the same period. March 2021 credit card balances were still $11.5 billion below their pre-pandemic levels. BMO Financial Group beat expectations as it reported a third quarter profit of close to $2.8 billion. That is up 85% from a year earlier. The result came as BMO posted a recovery of credit losses of $70 million for the quarter. That is a major turnaround compared with the provision of credit losses of $1.05 billion a year ago. Revenue increased 5% to $7.56 billion. Adjusted earnings came in at $3.44 per diluted share. On average, analysts were expecting $2.94. Best Buy rose the most in 13 months on Tuesday after it raised its full-year sales outlook as demand for its gadgets and services increased. Same-store sales rose 21% in the second quarter. That is above the 18.4% average estimates analysts were expecting. It now sees company-wide same-store sales growing in the range of 9 to 11% this year. Walmart in the United States is commercializing its delivery service, helping business owners deliver products directly to their customers' homes. America's largest retailer says it will use contract workers and drones to pick up products directly from other retailers and then deliver them to customers' doorsteps. The shift pits Walmart against the likes of Uber, DoorDash, and other delivery services. It comes as the company moves to expand its sources of profit and revenues beyond its core retail businesses. Now, here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 70 points to 20,548. The Dow was up 30 points to 35,366. The S&P 500 was up 6 points to 4,486. The Nasdaq was up 77 points to 15,020. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up $1.96 to $67.60 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 4 cents to $3.90 US. Gold was down a penny to $18.0288 US, and silver was up a penny to $23.87 US an ounce. Wheat is at $415 per metric ton. Barley, $412, canola, $891, and corn is at $435 per metric ton. Live cattle were down 65 cents to $125.80. Feeder cattle were up 38 cents to $158.58. Lean hogs were down 50 cents to $86.98. And the Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to finish at $79.39 US.
Recapping one of our top stories this hour, Liberal leader Justin Trudeau emerged from the emergency G7 virtual meeting on Afghanistan, saying that Canada is ready to stay beyond the August 31st evacuation deadline. But he and other leaders failed to persuade U.S. President Joe Biden to delay the American military withdrawal. Tens of thousands of Afghans have already fled the country since the Taliban took over. The Taliban say they've changed and are not the same terrorist group we remember back in the 1990s when they first ruled Afghanistan. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari is not buying it, and she'll explain why in just a moment. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Come and enjoy the Upside Downtown concert series, which features live musical performances by local artists taking place Thursdays from 5 to 7 p.m. until September 9th at Cass's Rotary Square. It's a free concert set in our beautiful downtown where you can meet up with friends, listen to great music, and then head to dinner at one of our amazing restaurants. It's a great way to end your Thursday workday. This is an initiative from the Heart of the City Committee and Allied Arts Council of Lethbridge. For more information, visit artslethbridge.org. The Lethbridge Senior Citizens Organization is urgently looking for volunteers to take part in their Drive Happiness program. This program is to help seniors in our community who are facing extreme loneliness due to lack of accessible transportation. Volunteers will drive clients to their medical appointments, pick up groceries, and take them to important life activities. If you're interested in this opportunity and for more information, call 403-332-4320 or email volunteer@volunteerlethbridge.com. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
Potential Islamic State threats against North Americans in Afghanistan are forcing the U.S. military to develop new ways to get evacuees to the airport in Kabul. To talk about this in more detail is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining me once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, officials say it's becoming even more complicated to get so many thousands out of the country after its swift fall to the Taliban. And U.S. President Joe Biden said 11,000 people have been airlifted from Kabul in a 36-hour period over the weekend.
Yes, but experts are warning that, as you said, Hal, this is mathematically impossible to get the rest of those who need to be taken out of Afghanistan out by the deadline, which is the end of this month of August. That's why we heard President Biden say that he may have to extend that deadline, to which there was a swift response by the Taliban who said, No way, Jose. Which is interesting. Let's see what the reaction will be from the White House. This is going to be extremely important. As you know, how this is being criticized across the political spectrum here in the United States. It's being criticized by world leaders in Europe and all over. But I think the next 2 weeks to a month, the posture, the positioning that the United States takes with regards to the Taliban is going to be very important. Now, remember, the Taliban has attempted to have a new face, to be more moderate, to use their PR machine, social media accounts and such, to say we're different. We're going to give women rights. We're going to, be different. This is not the same Taliban of the 90s, but they're already showing us their true colors. Women have been told not to go to work in certain sectors, and women have been told not to go to university in other provinces rather. So we know that they're going to play by their true colors, and this is going to be a mess. But yes, we are first and foremost prioritizing those who need to get out of the country because we don't want to have another hostage crisis on our hands, depending on how this escalates.
So how can American and Canadian forces ensure that they're not jihadists posing as refugees as many of these planes are being loaded up? Is there any time to vet anyone?
No, and the reason being that obviously the priority is to get them out, and I'm sure you've seen the images from the tarmac as to the chaos that is at the airport. So what they're doing is the planes that are coming out are stopping at other air bases. Germany, for example, is one of them. These individuals are then being vetted there. What to do with an individual that you find that cannot be properly vetted? I don't know. Have they even found individuals that are being flagged? I don't know. Look, here we have the biggest crisis at our southern border. We're not vetting anybody, not for COVID and not for more nefarious things. So, this is just one big mess. Obviously, we're hoping to get these people out. We know that obviously, not only bad actors, but good actors who just want to get out of Afghanistan. They were willing to risk their lives, and many did, to hold on to a part of an airplane that was taking off. So, we know that they're desperate to get out, and we know that they want help to get out. We're going to have a huge crisis on our hands with regards to refugees with nearby countries and Europe, and of course, those who want to come to the United States. And of course, we have to, reevaluate the situation as time goes on.
Yeah, tragedy at the Kabul airport as 7 Afghans were tragically killed trying to flee the country, including an interpreter's daughter, Lisa, who was trampled in a crowd at the airport. The little girl was just a toddler.
Yeah, this was such a sad story because we know that people died at the airport from a couple of different reasons. One was the airplane that took off, and many people died. I think 7 died there. Then you also had some gunfire between the Afghan security forces and the Taliban, in which there were some casualties, and now people being trampled just because of the sheer numbers. And obviously, the saddest part here is watching the footage of babies and toddlers and other children that are really being exposed to this, and in worst cases dying, being trampled to death because they are just trying to get out. This interpreter's daughter, it's a very sad story. You can read it in the New York Post and other outlets, but there's so many of these cases and so many of these babies that are being either kidnapped or killed, or in many cases, they're being exposed to things that they shouldn't be exposed to as children. So it's awful.
There's also a beautiful story of an Afghan woman giving birth to a baby girl on board a U.S. evacuation plane.
Yeah, this was a very interesting story. Imagine being so pregnant that you're almost in labor, and you take off. And apparently, she started having contractions and complications. And the pilot, God bless him, was seasoned enough to descend the plane a drop so that she can get more air pressure, and therefore saved her life, saved the baby's life. Wow. They landed at an air base in Germany. That's where the plane was headed. And of course, emergency personnel were called on board as soon as they landed, and the baby was born right then and there, ready to pop out, and a happy ending to a very, very, talk about interesting birth stories, right? These Western moms like to write their birth stories for their babies about how they got to the hospital and how long they were in labor for. Well, that mom has a very interesting story to tell her baby.
Absolutely. Now, an Afghanistan war veteran, Lisa, says hundreds of thousands of people are using satellite imagery to locate Taliban checkpoints surrounding the airport in Kabul as evacuation orders continue to get a lot of the Afghan interpreters out of the country.
Yes, so there is just such a dichotomy of just commands going on right now. So people are being ordered to go to the airport. Especially if you're near Kabul, the directive has been head to the airport, and that was the case for at least the first 2, 3, 4, 5 days after the Taliban took over the capital in Kabul. Then the word got out, obviously, when they're making these kinds of announcements, that the streets leading up to the airport are being lined by Taliban fighters. And not only that, the perimeter of the airport is being surrounded by Taliban fighters. So the airport is definitely not the safest place to go for these individuals, particularly women and children who are being stopped. So now they're using other means and technologies to try to locate these Taliban fighters so that people can work around them. As I said before, how people are desperate. They're going to do whatever they can to work around these Taliban fighters, to work around the Taliban rule, to get out of the country. And really, our hearts go out to those who are going to remain in the country, because if anyone knows the wrath of the Taliban, it's the Afghan people who have had to deal with them for decades. It's not anything new to them, but now they're in charge. They're leading a country. Their flag is up. They own the military, they own the weapons, and they're not going to be afraid to use them.
Absolutely. In a week after the Taliban seized control of Afghanistan, many people, as you mentioned earlier, are really struggling right now. Many of the women lost their jobs. Many people have lost their jobs. The jobs are gone, banks are closed, and food prices are soaring.
Soaring. It's a crisis, and it's spiraling out of control as we speak. And now imagine this society in which a terror organization has taken over. Women who have been educated and are lawyers and doctors and working in all sorts of sectors of society are going to be forced to stay home. They cannot leave home without a male escort, even to go to a doctor's appointment. Women cannot go to school. So think about all these women who are being educated, being told, drop out of college. You can't attend university classes anymore. And to what end? You're going to have a society that is obviously patriarchal, obviously ruled by Sharia law. We know what that means. We know that means that a woman cannot file for divorce. We know that means that a woman cannot have custody of her children, that her testimony in court will be equivalent to half of that of a man's. Look, if you don't believe what I'm saying, look at the people in Iran and what they're living under. That's Sharia law. And you know what, Hal, I've just been saying this all throughout all my TV appearances. It's how devastated we were in the aftermath of 9/11 when you had a terror organization that only had a cave at its disposal, and then how upset we were with ISIS in 2014 when you had a terror organization that had maximum 50, 60, 70,000 fighters and was had pockets in Syria and Iraq. Now you have a terror organization that has an entire country at its fingertips, all the resources, the money, the banks, as you said, the military, the weapons, the schools, everything. The entire country and its influence is under a terror organization. So it's going to get much worse for the people in that country, and that's why they're headed to the airport.
Lisa, and hundreds of Afghans who were employed to guard the British embassy until last year fear that they will be killed by the Taliban after they feel that they've been abandoned by the British.
Right. And that's a huge angle here. All the people who were helping the Europeans and the Americans and the Canadians, they feel as though we owe them, right? So if they were interpreting, or they were helping with security, or they were helping us with logistics on the ground and interpretation and everything else, well, they were assisting us in exchange for protection. And what do we have to give them? Protection. So abandoning these individuals is not an option. And if it is, it's going to be a huge scar and stain on our reputations as Western leading nations. Of course, all of our leadership is called into question, particularly that of President Biden for withdrawing without a plan. And let's not conflate the issues. It's not whether we should have withdrawn or not. It's in the manner in which we did, which was without any strategy, without fortifying our own assets and our own personnel, getting them out of the country first, without making sure that those weapons don't get into Taliban hands, and we didn't. And that's what it's going to come down to. And that's how this should be remembered in history as the way in which this was carried out.
What's also really scary right now, we're receiving reports, Lisa, that the Taliban is now going door to door looking for Christians to kill and others who oppose the Taliban.
Again, I'll say the preview to all this is under the Iranian regime. It's exactly what they do, where Christians are forced underground because they cannot practice openly, because that is what Sharia law dictates, that you have to kill a kafir. Kafir in Arabic means one who is blaspheming, or a blasphemous person, one who goes against the Quran, especially if you are a Muslim who has converted to Christianity. There's that's punishable by death, because you actually abandon or you turned your back on the Quran or on Islam. If you are a practicing Christian, meaning an Assyrian or an Armenian, then you can practice more freely than one who has converted. But how I'm not surprised by any of this. They will weed out, they will smell out anyone who has any opposing views, whether they be political or religious or social. They will sniff them out. And let's not fall for the PR machine that has come out to say the Taliban has a new face. Those are just talking points, and they unfortunately have platforms on American social media sites in order to come and spew this garbage. They shouldn't have these platforms. If our former president can't have a platform, they shouldn't have one either.
Now, your current president, Joe Biden, is meeting virtually with the G7 leaders to discuss plans to provide humanitarian aid and support for Afghan refugees. Lisa, Biden has held one-on-one phone conversations with British PM Boris Johnson, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, but nothing yet with Liberal leader Justin Trudeau.
Yes, well, so far, Germany, the UK, and France are extremely upset and disappointed with Joe Biden. They've been very vocal about this. The G7 is not just to have a constructive talk, but they really want to grill him on what he was thinking and why this went the way that it went. Justin Trudeau, on the other hand, I don't know how he feels yet. We know how certain people feel, right? We know how our enemies feel. We know that the Iranian regime, Hamas, the Chinese, the last terror organization, I want to say it's Palestinian Jihad, all have congratulated the Taliban to say, job well done, and to laugh at America and say, you lost this war against the Taliban. So this is another notch on their belt. Now, it will be extremely important going forward where leaders stand on this. We know that, as I mentioned, those 3 European nations that have expressed their disenchantment with the situation, how the United States handled this. And we're hoping that we get more support on this so that it pressures the White House to take a stand against the Taliban.
Now, Austria says it has a plan for the Afghan refugees and setting up deportation centers in countries neighboring Afghanistan so that the EU countries can deport Afghans who've been denied asylum even if they cannot be sent back to their homeland. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, this is interesting because how everyone wants to help them, the Afghan refugees, but nobody wants to absorb them. And it's understandable, right? It's understandable because we have such a migrant crisis already all around the world with, migrants from Syria and from Iraq and from all throughout the Middle East and elsewhere looking for refuge for many reasons. And now the Afghan people, perhaps they should get priority because they are running away from the Taliban. But that doesn't change the reality on the ground where the Europeans, particularly the Europeans, don't want to absorb this many Afghans. They just don't have the resources for it, and they're still trying to absorb the many that came over from Northern Africa and the Middle East already. So now this idea to set up these deportation camps is to try to have them stay in neighboring countries. I mean, it makes more sense, right? If you're indigenous to that part of the world, you do better in that part of the world. And hopefully these deportation camps can help vet, they can help, resituate these individuals to places that perhaps would be more suitable for them.
Yeah, vetting is so key and so important, especially as we get so many refugees spread out around the world, right? Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining us once again from Los Angeles. Thank you, Lisa.
My pleasure.
Just recently, a new report from the United Nations say that there was a dramatic worsening of world hunger in 2020, much of it likely related to the fallout of COVID-19. This will, of course, pose a challenging work for those who serve in impoverished communities. Although world poverty seems like a black hole, thankfully, there are some amazing people in this world who are doing something about it. And we are so blessed to have a local individual who seems to have a gift of enabling those people to do so more efficiently. So we're joined today by Dr. Daniel Zappoula, pastor of Mid-City Church in Lethbridge and the founder of Bridges of Hope, a humanitarian organization that empowers those in need around the globe. Daniel, welcome back to Bridge City News. So great to have you on today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's so good to be here.
Of course. So, Daniel, can you explain what Bridges of Hope is all about?
Well, Bridges of Hope is an international network of development agencies, and its job is to empower the people in less able communities to actually begin the process and the journey of self-sufficiency, because much of the world is going through an incredible moment of hunger, economic issues that are really plaguing their communities, including political issues that are dominating the conversation. And our organizations seek to empower people everywhere to be and become the best version of themselves.
Definitely. So when people come to you to get help or to get their charitable organization started, there's a lot that goes into it. So I understand you're not only helping them to jump through government red tape, but you also offer leadership and coaching and even training in how to market their organization and how to raise funds to help others, right?
Yeah, in general, again, we are a network of development agencies, meaning we network many people, both local organization here in Lethbridge, Canadian-based, American-based, European organization, as well as Indigenous people, Indigenous organizations. And so when people send in an application, we create a contract that govern how we operate and lead ourselves to deliver the result, that it may be specific to a region or a country or a particular community, including Lethbridge here.
So does Lethbridge and Southern Alberta have quite a number of charities working under the Bridges of Hope umbrella then?
Yet quite a few, we got quite a few, maybe even in Lethbridge in particular, we have maybe a dozen organizations that work together with Bridges of Hope to be able to deliver its mission here locally. You know, for example, organizations like Youth One, that's a part of Bridges of Hope as well. We have other organizations that in Cardston and Calgary and all around about. We do have also parachurch organizations or churches themselves. We have some churches also that just partner fully with us to be able to deliver the result that we see as charitable in our community.
Okay. And so globally speaking, which countries are you working in right now?
Well, about 25 different countries, both in Africa and Europe and South America, as well as obviously in North America. We have been operating with 25 countries about, those include Haiti. We have quite a lot of projects in Haiti that includes hospitals, schools, couple of universities. We got also programs that really provide for microfinances or business creation, just helping the Indigenous people jumpstart the local economy. Because if charity is good for one thing, it's good to receive something, but here's the thing, it's another thing for you to become independent, to become self-sufficient. And that instead of you being the beneficiary, you become a benefactor. So our goal have always been turning beneficiaries into benefactors. I was a beneficiary of charity. I was one who was sponsored. I was one who was helped. Now I am working I've been in my mid-50s. Now I can look back, that the very cities and the very places, the very streets I walked in, in Africa, I am now trying to enrich and to help them become better. The whole story of Bridges of Hope is, it doesn't matter who you are and where you start. It doesn't matter where you started. It doesn't matter the problem that you encounter. If you work hard with trust in God and with faith in Him, we believe that God is able to work in your life such that you become who he meant you to be. He can turn you from a beneficiary to a benefactor. It's that simple.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you've turned your life around and are now helping others the way that you benefited so much. And you mentioned something interesting too. You said that it's more than just, it goes beyond scarcity of food and water, right? It goes deeper than that. So what are the kinds of needs that you're seeing typically in these nations?
You know, poverty is really systemic, you see. It's not just a depletion of resources. In fact, if we want to look at resources, there is enough food to feed the whole world and more for the next hundreds of years. There's enough food. So it's not even about scarcity of resources. We got them. The problem is that there is a system that creates that hunger. For example, the reason I got involved in studying Bridges of Hope some over 20 years ago is because there was no water in one community. And as we sought to provide water for the community, we realized, wow, the community doesn't have a water problem. They actually have water problem, but they do have health problem. The death rate was so high. And then in the process, we realized it's full of orphans and people who are thrown out and kids that are abandoned. And then we realized, oh my Lord. So we have a health problem, we have a hunger problem, and then education problem. So we started from the well, we built an orphanage, and from an orphanage, a school, and the school, a college, and the college, a university. And suddenly we have millions of students from around, you know, it's just like that are finding the difference and getting to school and so on. But the whole joy in all that I do is, again, reminding people of this very truth. It's not about you giving your money to help an orphan. It's about eliminating the system that creates orphans. And the system is very strong. And that system, it lives and thrives on at least three agencies: government, religion, and then the third is the capital, in the sense of government's willingness or unwillingness, religion, because there's too much war. Much of a war is created by religion. There's no peace. There's no sense of it. So there is a loss of war. And like in Nigeria, for example, and in Burkina Faso, some of the local churches, they're blown up. You know, you want to do a baptism there, it blows you up. So religious, that's a system that is really against that. And the capital, the sense that even if it's a good thing, there's no money that is available. That's why we are motivating the third powers, which I believe are media, like yourself, artists. I'm an artist myself. I do African music and dance theater. We need to mobilize them and people and normal people like you and me to get involved and to get involved in doing the work of releasing the people from poverty, feeding the poor and the hungry, clothing the naked, and helping people become who they are truly meant to be. And so it is quite tough, it is quite difficult, but again, it's a system. Poverty itself is a mindset, and sometimes it's maddening when I go to the Congos, when I go to Rwanda or Burundi, and I go and I see what took place, the historical injustices and that really took place. It's sad to watch, but I believe that in the end, above all, poverty is also spiritual. It is a spiritual thing in the sense that it's a depletion of our spiritual capacity to show up and to be who God meant us to be. And that's why I'm so glad. I thank God for the redemptive work that he has done for me. I'm here because one missionary reached out and helped me find Jesus, find hope, and find meaning, and find direction. And through that, I was able to go to school, and thank God for those missionaries and those people who are sponsoring a child, one person at a time. That's why I'm here.
Oh, that's amazing. It's so interesting to hear you talk about that, because we hear so many different views on what causes poverty, and to hear you say that it's actually systemic and it's also be ritual. I mean, there's all these different things that we're not normally thinking. So when you help somebody rise up out of poverty, are you also using like micro loans to help individuals get started in a business? Because I know you mentioned that a little bit as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I think in terms of lifting people out of poverty I took some folks from our city hall, to West Africa, and we had meeting with maybe you can have 1,000 women, and the women were explaining what they need. And then in the midst of it, and the lady said, "We'll help." No, we're trying to reach out. We're going to help you. And one lady from the crowd stood up, say, "We don't need your help. We don't need. You know what we need? We just need capital." That's one of the ladies said. "Give me capital, and I just want to do business with you. Can you give me capital? I will start a business. I'll pay you." Because the truth on the ground is that people have no access to the banks. They don't have access to capital to do business. And so we always keep on saying, "Whoa, you want to teach them how to fish? Don't teach them how to fish." No, the Africans, most of them, we don't need nobody to teach us how to fish. We just need access to the pond. And to have access to the pond, you need some capital. And that's what people are struggling with. So that's why through our agencies, we saw incredible system of microfinance started. Micro, meso, or macro loans were created. And incredible, like I can tell you today, at any given day, at least 30,000 women operate with a micro loan that is helping them really be and become. And you know what, isn't that great? You can start your own business because the government cannot have no job for you. There is no job available, so you have to create it yourself.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what are some of the more specific needs of women in developing nations? Are you basically saying there's no opportunity for them, so the best opportunity for them is to start their own business through these microloans?
That's correct. Yes, women, again, they are really the backbone of the economy in most of the region I'm talking about in Africa. No, traditionally and also in real, they are very, very, very enterprising. You see, and so, but the problem is that with them is that they're in the village, they are in the remote places, and again, they have no access. But the truth of the matter is that if you resource a woman, if you give ability to a woman to actually take care of herself and her family, she will not just keep the money to herself. She'll give it to feed her family and her children. And so the key has been to actually empowering them, because the condition on the ground is not something that is to their favor. They're still facing many difficulties and access issues and discrimination issues, no employment for them. So we really put a lot of emphasis on women and young girls, and I mean educating them too as well. And as you look at the statistic, the population is predominantly women. To give you an example, in churches, in some of the churches, 80% of them, the people who go to church are probably women, but there's no women leader. Huh? Why not? So the key is to reinforce their capacity so that they can take care of themselves and nurture their community.
How can the people watching at home get involved in Bridges of Hope?
Well, first, the first thing I want to say is thank you to your viewer. I know in Lethbridge first, we have been incredibly supported by this city. I'm so thankful to Lethbridge and to Canada. It's really, really, I'm really thankful. I also understand that this is a moment in which there is a compassionate fatigue or charity fatigue. We're just fatigued about charity all by and large. I understand and I realize that. And but I want to again appeal to you and to your goodwill, again, to continue to reach out and help any non-profit organization in our cities who are working in the streets, the young people, the young adults in general, just to reach out and do something. Because my goal is not to get all the money for myself, for my own programs. No, I want to make sure that as a people, that we are reaching out and we are taking care of our people. And in particular, Bridges of Hope, if you want to help us, you go to our website and there's a big button there. You can donate. You can donate to a program. You can sponsor a child to go to school. You can also help pay for maybe a nurse or a teacher to go into a community and reach out. Our website provides like dozens and dozens of organizations that may relate to your heart. And I want you to respond and help our people, help our agency be and become the best version of themselves. But thank you so much for taking time to even watch and listen to us in this time.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for being with us today, Daniel. We really appreciate having you on. Dr. Daniel Zappoula is the founder of Bridges of Hope, and you can go to their website, www.bridgesofhope.ca. Thanks for being with us today, Daniel.
Thank you.
I'm Jeanette Roche. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, thanks for watching.